So I used to be Mormon, and we've got a new horror movie about some Mormon missionaries put into a crazy situation with some twists, some great tension, and also some pretty solid gore as well. So yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Mad Blood. And like I said, we've got this new horror movie called Heretic, which is about these sister missionaries who were thrown into just this crazy situation by this older guy played by Hugh Grant. And especially considering the fact that I grew up Mormon, but haven't been in many years, like I said earlier, we have a lot to talk about. And so the movie starts out with a pretty accurate conversation, especially between Mormons of this age, where with the sister missionaries, they're sitting on a bench. One of them's talking about like Magnum condoms, but we're kind of getting to know the characters a little bit more. And it just shows you how some of them are so sheltered and so naive that, some of the missionaries are, especially at this age, like I mentioned earlier. It's also funny to me hearing that one of them is from Ogden, Utah. I swear like half of my family is from Ogden, Utah. I'm up there all the time visiting. So just kind of funny from my perspective hearing that as well, which is hilarious. But so I never went on a mission, but I've spent a lot of time with missionaries. My brother went on a mission. My dad went on a mission. So I'm very familiar of the ins and outs of what missionaries do and what kind of their life is like. And there's a moment earlier on in the movie that to me wasn't that great. And I don't think it was really that accurate of a portrayal of missionary work. Yes, they get hazed. Yes, they have people that say terrible things to them. There's a moment where they kind of get made fun of for like their magic underwear, and one of them gets pantsed, which to me felt a little bit Hollywood and kind of took me out of that scene a little bit. But what didn't was like the missionaries portraying, and one of them in particular talking about kind of their baptism numbers. One of them says something like, "Oh, I baptized like 8 people." And the other one's like, "Oh, wait, oh man, I'm nowhere near that. I don't think baptized any," which is very accurate. I mean, especially when missionaries talk to their families back home, they'll often say like how many people they've baptized, what kind of they're up to, just the work, kind of the success that they've had. And the shitty members of the church love to flex this kind of stuff to their friends and family back home, which just puts more pressure on the missionaries because they don't want to let them down. It's kind of like a comparison thing without a doubt, when in reality, a lot of the times, it's just a product of where you are and not necessarily like your actual faith or like your skill as a salesman. In certain countries, you just baptize more people, and that's just a reality of the situation. But these kids are so young, so they feel that kind of pressure. But that's an important thing in the story and one of the biggest reasons why they get into this mess just in general. And I will say, I think the casting that they did for the sister missionaries was very good. I also like the aspect of they created one of them to be kind of like a convert who didn't necessarily grow up in the church and maybe does possibly have some questions about the church because of what happened to her family and some of the things just in her history. And then you have the other girl who, is one of those standard raised in the church, very devout, family's probably very devout, all of that. I like that dynamic between both of them. I think that was very smart. Also shows that they probably did a lot of research for this movie. But really, in the end, I mean, Hugh Grant's character, and Hugh Grant does an incredible job in this movie, and specifically does such a great job tiptoeing that line that I'm sure a lot of women watching this movie especially can relate to. I know my wife has talked about this many times, but often women get put in this situation with a man, especially in like a vulnerable type of situation, maybe alone, where you're kind of thinking to yourself, okay, is this person just being really nice? Or is there something sinister going on here? Do they have an ulterior motive? It's hard to tell. And Hugh Grant's character just does a great job tiptoeing that line of like a nice guy, but something off about him. But it just comes across as very unassuming and makes you feel, and then also makes you feel off, like he's weird, but then makes you feel safe again. And he's just incredible in this movie, which of course is very important because if Hugh Grant doesn't crush it in this movie, the movie's pretty much dead on his face. But Hugh Grant's an incredible actor. It's also funny that he's now doing some horror stuff, which I love to see. I mean, he was always known as, like in the 90s, doing like chick flicks and things like that, which were great. I also love moments in this movie that Hugh Grant, he'll ask them a question that makes you really think and almost seems a little sinister, but also innocent, like I kind of talked about earlier. But then he does like this whole like eek face. He kind of goes, "Ugh," as he's going to ask them like a crazy question. I think like he is just the perfect casting, and I just don't think, there's not too many people I could imagine putting in this role that could pull it off this well. I also think Hugh Grant's just at that perfect age in his life where he's old enough where it's believable that he's this guy that has this huge knowledge base. Maybe he's had some crazy things happen, some trauma happen in his life, just a lot of things going on. He seems kind of lonely, and just knowledge that he's accumulated and wisdom that he's accumulated over the years, which has built his character into what he is. But yeah, Hugh Grant in this movie is just really damn good. And from the perspective of somebody who used to be Mormon and even still today is surrounded by the church a lot when I'm around family and some other things like that, I respect that this movie clearly did their research. They weren't sloppy with some of the things that they're saying. Some of the things that they're saying are very historically accurate. I mean, it's not a big secret that the LDS Mormon Church, like most churches in the world, have definitely some skeletons in their closet. And most notably, the guy who founded the church, Joseph Smith, has some questionable things in his past, to say the least. So in this movie, when Hugh Grant really presses the girls on some of that stuff, when they're talking to him about the church, and some of the points that he brings up are very specific about Joseph Smith and some of the other things in the church. From my perspective, I'm like, okay, they did their research. They know what they're talking about, because this is a lot of stuff that's pretty much been confirmed as fact. So for me, that was effective and definitely a positive moment in the movie. There's also this great moment in the first half of the movie where the tension is so thick. It's dark, it's silent, and even the people next to me were like, oh, please don't have a jump scare here. It's one of those moments where you kind of cover your eyes because you know something is coming, but then it never comes. It's just like it keeps that tension going without the release, which kind of carries into a lot of the scenes later on right after that moment, which I thought was great. And this movie's packed full of metaphors and symbolism, but to me, it's not really in a confusing way. I think it's very easy to digest, which was effective. Even one of the key moments that we've all seen in the trailers has a nice little twist to it, in my opinion, and really makes you think about if the things you believe are just because someone asked you to believe in them, which is true about politics, sports, religion, really anything. So a massive theme in this movie is about iterations and really how different generations see some things as being very unique and original, whereas in reality, especially nowadays in 2024, most of what we see in music, movies, and just really entertainment in general is like some form of an iteration of something before it. And in a lot of cases, the OG kind of original in that area really never got the credit they deserve. But I appreciate when a movie teaches you something, because especially, like I said, in 2024, it's kind of like, man, we've seen everything in the world of remakes and reboots and unoriginal plot lines and everything like that. It's awesome that a movie can still teach you something. And in this movie, it does. And I think it's very effective. Closer to the end of the movie, we get some slasher moments as well, which were fun. We also get some great haunted house vibes towards the end of the movie. It feels like a religious horror movie, of course, but it's also kind of grounded in normal suburban life, which I think is more relatable to a lot of us, which was great. And I thought that was just a very smart way to go about with the story. And if you're a fan of the Saw franchise, now this movie's not that gory, of course, but I think there's going to be some things that you'll like here. I would have to think that Hugh Grant's character had to have been inspired by Jigsaw in some kind of a way, because there's some games here, and the intention behind the games definitely makes you think. I will say though, I didn't hate, but I didn't love the direction that they took Hugh Grant's character at the end of the movie. I think they had a chance to make his intentions seem a little bit more unique, not something we had really seen before in the genre, but that didn't necessarily ruin the movie or anything like that. But overall, to me, I think the ending wasn't really incredible. It's not something that's going to kind of stand the test of time in the genre or anything like that, in my opinion. But I do think the ending was pretty solid. It had some good surprise moments, in my opinion, and also some good gore. So if a devout Mormon went and saw this movie, would it piss them off? And I don't think so. And let me tell you why. Yeah, this movie doesn't always paint religion in a good light by any means, but in the end, I don't think people who are Mormon will be that mad about how they portrayed the church or missionaries in this movie. I think the journey is pretty well thought out. Like I said earlier, they aren't lazy when they talk about the Mormon Church, and I also think they cover a lot of the stuff Mormons are used to hearing, especially in this information age that we live in now. So yeah, in the end, this movie's a very solid horror kind of thriller movie that is acted pretty damn well. Personally, I laughed a lot in the movie just because there's a lot of things in it, I relate to from just personal experience in this movie. But this movie will definitely also, like I mentioned earlier, make you think, but not in like a highbrow, snobby kind of a way. And it also has some good payoffs along the way. So is Heretic the best horror movie of the year? I don't think so, but I do think it's a movie you should watch for sure. But anyways, everybody, thanks so much for watching my review of Heretic. If you want some more content from me right now, go ahead and check out one of these videos next to me. If you don't want to miss future content in the future, then make sure you subscribe. That is the best way to do that. But anyways, again, everybody, thanks for watching. My name is Matt, and I will talk to you in the next one.